All right, top 10 fantasy running backs of 2024. Just gonna get right into it here because I realized that I have to make my videos under 15 minutes on YouTube. Number one, I got Breece Hall. Obviously, a very tough choice between him and CMC, and there's some others you could throw in there. But last year he was coming off of that ACL, and he looked pretty good from the get-go. Their offense as a whole was terrible last year. Teams were very clearly not scared of any passing threat. With Rodgers out, and Zach Wilson and Trevor Siemian, whoever was playing back there. So they were stacking the box. He also had one of the worst run and blocking offensive lines, and they have added three, I think, different pieces, two starters, and they drafted a tackle at number 10. So their O-line should be a lot better. There should be, less pressure on him. Like the field should be more open. Just with having Aaron Rodgers and their improved receiving core as well. But yeah, last year, 4.5 yards a carry, 994 yards, just shy of 600 receiving yards, 9 total touchdowns on the season. Their offense was trash. I could see his touchdowns going up to about 15 total. I think his yards per carry will be over 5. I could see him leading the league in rushing. Great year coming for Breece Hall. Number 2, we've got CMC. Could not drop him past number 2. He is 28 years old. Historically, it is not great for running backs once they get over that 27 marker, but I think he's a little bit different. And last year he had 15 or just shy of 1,500 rushing yards, 5.4 yards a carry. He had 560 receiving yards, 7 touchdowns. He had 21 total touchdowns. He's in, top 2, top 3 offense in football, solid offensive line. There was some talk about, from the coaching staff, I think, of needing to kind of hold him back just a little bit. He's the guy who doesn't want to come out ever, but, they know they need to give him a little bit of a break, keep him fresh for the playoffs. That's the most important thing. So, maybe his carries go down from, 272 to 250. I mean, so what? He's still going to be up there and scoring a lot of touchdowns. So another big year for CMC if he stays healthy. Number 3, we've got King Henry going over to the Ravens. Should have happened a couple years ago, to be honest. Would have been such a great fit. It is still a good fit. The thing I want to point out is, his efficiency last year wasn't that great, but that Titans offense was just abysmal. 4.17 yards a carry, but he still had 12 touchdowns on a bad offense. Listen to his touchdowns the last, 7 seasons. 12 touchdowns, 16 touchdowns, 17 touchdowns. Then he had 10 touchdowns, but he only played 8 games that season. And then he had 13 and 12. So now he's going to one of the better offenses in football, whose defense was elite last year. I think might take a slight step back because of some of their, key free agents that they've lost. And Mike McDonald, they're still going to be very good, but I think they might get into more shootouts than they were. Need to score points. Gus Edwards, who is now on the Chargers, also J.K. Dobbins left, so there's some, he's the top dog there. He's going to be getting probably 300 carries. Even if he's averaging 4 yards a carry, let's just say, let's say he gets 1,200 yards, he's going to have, I think, honestly, he might lead the league in rushing touchdowns somewhere between 15 and 20. I mean, Gus Edwards had 13 rushing touchdowns in that Ravens offense last year, and he had under 200 carries. So he's going to be in for a monster workload and a lot of touchdowns. Now, if you're in a PPR league, I would probably change the rankings just a little bit. I'd probably want, Bijan and maybe a couple other guys over him. He's not going to get a lot of catches. But if you're in half PPR or standard, I'd have number 3. Number 4, we got Bijan Robinson. Last year, he was pretty efficient with his touches. He only had 214 carries, 4.6 yards a carry, just shy of 1,000 yards. Had 8 total touchdowns because he had 58 catches for just shy of 500 yards and 4 touchdowns as well. That was a bad offense that he was in, and his red zone, I think he had one of the lowest red zone percentage carries, or maybe he was inside the 5-yard line, something like that. Tyler Algier was getting all of those. The good news is that Arthur Smith is gone, and Arthur Smith was a very weird dude. He did weird stuff with his players. He's out of there. Kirk Cousins is in. Their offense is going to be a lot better. There was a comment made that they want to use him like CMC. Now, I still expect Algier to get some touches, but you hear you're going to use him like CMC. I mean, he's going to be a workhorse, and he's going to get more touchdowns this year. Hard to not like Bijan. Number 5. This was a tough one for me, but I did change my mind, and I went with Jonathan Taylor. Now, if it was a PPR, I think there's an argument you can make for a couple other guys, but we're going to go with Jonathan Taylor here. He's been injured the last couple of seasons, and you haven't really, ever since he had that monster year, you haven't seen that version of him. I think the Colts are going to have a sneaky good offense this year, and he's going to have some opportunities. One of the concerns is Anthony Richardson might take some of those goal line touchdowns, and he will. But he was getting hurt doing that last year, so maybe they'll be a little bit more hesitant to just feed Richardson all those goal line carries. But yeah, they're pretty loaded. I mean, Adonai Mitchell, Pittman, Alec Pierce, Josh Downs, Jonathan Taylor, Richardson. Good offensive staff. They're going to be a good offense. He averaged 4.4 yards a carry last year. He had 8 total touchdowns. I just, if he can stay healthy, he's going to be a top, he's going to be an RB1. Like, there's no doubt about that. So, yeah, Jonathan Taylor back in the top 5 this year. Now, number 6, we've got Jahmyr Gibbs going into his second year in the league. Last year, he played 15 games, 182 attempts, 945 yards, 5.2 yards a carry. He had 10 rushing touchdowns, only 1 receiving, which I think that number will go up even if his rushing were to go down a little bit. I think it'll even out by his receiving game. He did have, 52 receptions last year. That could go up too. They've talked about wanting to use him more as a receiver, as a weapon. He's an elite receiving running back. We saw in college. Has that big play upside at any moment from anywhere. The concern, I would have him as like my number 2 or 3 back if there was no David Montgomery. And if the Lions, God bless Dan Campbell's heart, he's a stubborn dude. And last year, it drove me mad because I had him in one of my leagues, how little they used him at the beginning of the year. And he did get some more work kind of in the middle of the season, and he showed he can handle it. I just think they're going to want to keep him fresh, and they're not going to just not use Montgomery anymore. The other concerning thing is in the playoffs. Now, he did have a rushing touchdown in all 3 of their playoff games, but he had 8 attempts, 9 attempts, 12 attempts. That's concerning. He only got over 20 carries 1 time last year, and he actually only got over 15 twice, if I'm seeing this correctly. He got to 15 a couple times, but he only got over 15 carries 2 times. If you knew he was going to have a bigger workload, he would be, like I said, number 2 or 3. I'm just concerned about that, but he's very efficient with his opportunities. Love Jahmyr Gibbs this year. Number 7, we got Saquon Barkley, one of the bigger free agent acquisitions this year, going over to the Eagles, the division rival. Some bad blood there. He only played 14 games last year, 247 carries, 962 yards, just shy of 4 yards per carry. He had 10 total touchdowns, 41 receptions. Again, on a very bad, it's kind of like Breece Hall, what Breece Hall dealt with last year. Very, very bad offense, very, very bad offensive line, going to one of the league's better offenses, you would think. Not at the end of last year, certainly, but they changed their whole coaching staff there offensively. And one of the league's probably top 3 offensive lines, even including Jason Kelce retiring. They're still one of the better offensive lines. They're not going to, crowd the box. You still got A.J. Brown to worry about, and Devontae Smith and Jalen Hurts. The biggest concern I would have with Saquon would be the whole tush-push thing. He might be, his job in the red zone might be just getting up in, Jalen's cheeks and giving him a nice shove. So, I don't know. We'll see what they do with the whole tush-push thing without Kelce. I would imagine they're still going to try it because it works so well. But regardless, he could be in for a monster year. It's probably the most motivated, that he's going to be now, having a couple down years, just not having success over there in New York. And now he has a legitimate chance to play for a championship. So, going to be exciting to see what he can do. All right, number 7, we got Kyren Williams. Now, this guy finished as the RB6, and he played 12 games. The Rams love using their running backs. He had 5.02 yards a carry, 12 rushing touchdowns in 12 games, 1,100 rushing yards, 32 catches and 3 receiving touchdowns. So in 12 games, 15 total touchdowns. Obviously, they drafted Blake Corum, and that does concern me. The Rams, while they do love their running backs, they're kind of one of those teams where you just never know when they're going to change it up and somebody else is going to be the top dog and get the bulk of the carries. Now, I would expect Kyren to be that guy, and I expect him to start the year off on fire, and maybe slowly Blake Corum starts, getting more work. If you were going to draft Kyren, I would strongly recommend drafting Corum later on, even if it doesn't make too much sense for your team. I would really try to get him as that handcuff, because as long as you have the main guy in that offense, you're going to be putting up numbers. Last year, man, he had a crazy stretch where he had 37 fantasy points, 21, 15, 25, 18, and 31. And then even at the start of the year, 18, 26, 8, 27, 8, 23. So this guy has some massive upside. I do get being a little bit concerned about Blake Corum being there, though. Number 9, we got Travis Etienne. Now, he finished as the 3rd ranked running back in both half PPR and PPR last season. He did that while averaging 3.78 yards a carry, which is down by over a whole yard from his second season, which was at 5.11. So I would expect that to even out a little bit, probably be somewhere in the mid-4s this season. Gave him a lot of carries, 267 carries. He had 11 rushing touchdowns, but here's another thing. He had 73 targets, 58 catches, just shy of 500 receiving yards, only 1 receiving touchdown. Could be some room for improvement on receiving touchdowns. 11 rushing touchdowns seems a little bit high, maybe. But he's still a workhorse, and their offense should be pretty solid this year. There was some talk about giving Tank Bigsby some more work. Pretty sure they kind of had said that going into last season too, that they wanted to use him. So we'll see if that happens. I still expect him to be a pretty big workhorse running back, and I'm not overly concerned about his usage changing. And again, I do expect his yards per carry to go up. So even if his attempts drops a tiny bit, it should probably neutralize out, and he could be in for a similar season. Number 10, we got Joe Mixon. This was a tough one, as we're getting back to the end here. Honestly, it was like 4 or 5 guys. You could have gone Ken Walker, could have gone Achane, which a lot of you are probably surprised that Achane's not in here, which we'll get into in the next running back video. But Joe Mixon, he has not really ever been a very efficient running back. I'll pull up his yearly yards per carries here. But he's gotten a lot of volume, and he's always gotten some touchdowns. And now he's going to, the Bengals were an elite offense, but he's going to another really good offense who's going to score a lot of points. So yeah, in his career, 3.52, 4.93, that's great. 4.09, 3.6, 4.1, 3.9, 4.02. So not the most efficient yards per carry, but he gets a ton of touches. He's got 4 seasons over 1,000 yards. Last 3 years, he had 13, 7, and 9 rushing touchdowns, and he does catch the ball. Last 3 years, he's had 42, 60, and 52 receptions, and he gets some touchdowns there too. So again, a great offense, a really good run blocking offense there, good running scheme. It doesn't seem like they're too interested in using Dameon Pierce as we saw last year. So he should get a lot of work and a lot of touchdowns. So like Joe Mixon this year. Also, he was the RB5 last year. So there is my top 10 for the 2024 season. Could change a little bit. I don't expect it to too much. It better not, because I have my drafts coming up, and we are 50 days away as I am recording this from football season, baby. Cannot wait. Best time of the year. Thank you guys for watching. If you stayed the whole time, comment down below. Let me know what you think of my rankings. Let me know your rankings. Let me know where you disagree. Let me know why I am a moron. But thank you guys for watching, and football season is almost upon us, baby.